resources, or one can say it is used in international trade. In international trade, when countries, different countries, basically we tend to use two countries when they are producing related products. Then there we have to come down and analyze these two countries and their products that they are producing. Because when they are producing, they all don't produce at the same costs of production. Yet they are producing different quantities of those very products. And therefore, due to that, at times they tend to cause duplication of that particular commodity when there are many commodities producing the same commodity. And therefore, we have to put in to employ our opportunity cost for us to determine which of the two countries has to produce which commodity. Yes. So, for example, if Uganda and Kenya, they are all producing cotton and coffee, but there are variations in the quantities that each one is producing. They are not producing the same. They're not producing the same. And therefore, that one calls in for us to bring opportunity cost as a concept to help us determine which product should Uganda get involved in producing and which commodity should Kenya take up in production and forgoes the other, such that each of the two countries can only be able to produce one commodity and leaves the other for another country to produce. And that one will enable them to always trade among themselves with the product which they have not been able to produce, or to engage in the production of that commodity where they are incurring a higher opportunity cost. Okay? Yes. And therefore, basically, when we come to international trade, we shall have to talk about that one more. But at the moment, maybe let me try to highlight for you and show you how this one can be done. International trade, how it can be done with opportunity cost. I have talked about cotton and coffee. Assuming both Uganda and Kenya, for example, Uganda is producing coffee and cotton. And even Kenya is producing the same. Kenya is also producing what? The same. I think you are seeing that. So one of these two commodities must be produced by one country. Either Uganda should produce only coffee and Kenya produces only cotton. Clear? Such that Uganda can be buying cotton from Kenya and Kenya should buy coffee from Uganda. How do we determine that? Can I show you? Yes, let us proceed. Let us proceed and see how opportunity cost helps us in to determine international trade. we say that let us say production of coffee, by both countries. By both countries. So we are going to calculate when they're producing both countries producing one product, who is going to incur a heavy cost? There? Yes. A heavy cost. Now here we have to estimate. We have to have some figures that assuming that Uganda is producing coffee okay, we must have had product. We must have had a table to guide us in this kind of calculation, such that we can see coffee and we also see cotton. And therefore, assuming that we are having units of coffee having 10 tons of coffee, and then 12 tons of cotton, and then also this one here being for Uganda, and then Kenya having for coffee, for example, for coffee, having 15 tons and having 8 tons. How do we calculate that then? We say that if Uganda is here and Kenya is here, this one for Kenya, this one for Uganda. To maybe to make it very proper, let us use this quantities, this one as Uganda, isn't it? All right. Now we say that for Uganda to produce 10 tons of coffee, it must forego 12 tons of cotton. And therefore, for Uganda to produce 1 ton of coffee, it must forego 12 tons of cotton divided by 10. That for us to produce 1 ton of coffee must forego 12 of 10 of cotton. And therefore, here we shall get the answer equaling to what? equaling to 1 point, is it 0.2? Is it 0.2? Someone with a calculator? Someone with a calculator? Yes, how many? That is 12. 12 divided by 10. 1.2 years. So this would be our opportunity cost of producing coffee to this. But then what about where Kenya, remember we are looking at production of coffee by both countries. So we also first look at Kenya when it is producing what? When it is producing coffee. So for Kenya to produce 15 tons, for Kenya to produce 15 tons of coffee, it must forego 8 tons of what? Of cotton. Therefore, for this one to produce 1 ton of coffee, it has to forego of what? Of 15. Therefore, the answer we get there becomes our opportunity cost of using calculate out, and we move together. That is 8 divided by 15. So you get 0.5. 0.5. Yes. So 0.5 becomes our opportunity cost for Kenya to produce coffee. So out of this, which one is bigger than the other? Out of the two figures, it means this one here is bigger than the 0.5. And remember our opportunity cost, that a country specializes, a country should buy what it cannot produce well. Where you are incurring a higher cost of production, you have to forego that one and go for the one you are incurring a least opportunity cost. So for this time round, before we conclude which country is to produce which product, let us also briefly look at for the case of cotton. For the case of cotton, that for Uganda to produce a given amount of cotton, for example, 12 tons of cotton, it has to forego 10 tons of coffee. Therefore, to produce 1 ton of cotton, it has to forego how many? 10 over 12. And then what is that? When we calculate this, what is that? 0. 0 point what? Do you have a calculator there? Do you have a calculator there? We have 10 divided by 12. 0.8. Okay? 0.8. That is for Uganda to produce what? Cotton. What about Kenya? that for Kenya to produce cotton, what should it do? For Kenya to produce this, it must forego this. Therefore, to produce 8 tons of cotton, it has to forego 15 tons of coffee. Okay? And therefore, for us to have 1 ton of cotton, we must forego 15 tons of coffee divided by what? Divided by 8. Now when we divide by 8, it means that the answer we get here, what is the answer? What are you getting? I hope you are also calculating. Only that you are going to tell me what actually you have got. That is divided by 8. You get 1.9 when we have rounded off. Yes. So in whichever circumstance, for this matter here, we have to notify, or we have to identify which commodity, which country should produce which commodity. Okay?